Welcome back to the Game Collection. Last time, I talked about Breath of Fire, a game which should need no introduction. But in case you do need one, check out this link here and check out my last video. Before a quick recap, if you don't have time for that, Breath of Fire marked Capcom's first entry into the RPG market. It was a game by beginners for beginners. Sure, they made a few rookie mistakes, but they could easily be forgiven. And fans wanted more. Lucky for us, we got more. When Breath of Fire was released in the United States, Breath of Fire 2 was already well underway in development. Capcom was now wiser, more experienced. They learned from their mistakes in Breath of Fire 1. And somehow, within just a year, they unleashed upon the world what some consider to be the best RPG in the series. But is it? I am SuperDerek, and this is Breath of Fire 2. Breath of Fire 2 takes place 500 years after the events of Breath of Fire 1, and once again the fate of the world is in peril. Once again, a hero of the Dragon Clan must rise to the challenge, and once again we are invited into the world of Breath of Fire. There are a lot of similarities and throwbacks to the original Breath of Fire. Some of these similarities, such as the names and clans of our heroes Ryu and Nina, become series staples. Names and themes of towns and their locations make a return from the original game, making everything feel very familiar. But the world isn't just reused from Breath of Fire 1, it's been revamped, and it feels much more fully fleshed out. In a way, Breath of Fire 2 feels like a sort of a love letter from Capcom to the fans of Breath of Fire 1. And it really works. However, there are some other differences, and not all of them are for the better. Following the success of Breath of Fire 1, Capcom decided that they wanted to take a more hands-on approach to the localization process. And as a result, that means Squaresoft was no longer involved in the translation and localization of Breath of Fire 2. And, unfortunately, that shows. Despite the lackluster translation, you can pick up that Capcom had something bigger in mind when it came to the story of Breath of Fire 2. The narrative and the direction of the story are much stronger and attempted to grab the player with a mystery that gradually unravels to reveal a much larger conspiracy. The events of Breath of Fire 2 take you across the world of Breath of Fire, making allies along the way. Each ally has a sad, compelling, or just plain goofy story arc that fits neatly into the puzzle that is the plot of Breath of Fire 2. If only the translation was strong enough to do it justice. Many gameplay mechanics were carried over from Breath of Fire 1. The game is a classic, turn-based RPG featuring difficult enemies and tricky, puzzling dungeons. Grinding for experience points and gold are still necessary evils, even more so now that party members not in play no longer receive experience points. And the enemy encounter rate is still pretty rough. The transformation system also has been modified so that Breath of Fire 2 provides a more consistent challenge from beginning to end, for better or worse. Aside from the combat, hunting and fishing has also been completely reworked as well, providing a much greater challenge and more interactive experience. Breath of Fire 2 took that isometric battle system from Breath of Fire 1 and cranked the dial up to 11. The result is some of the best looking sprite work that you can find on the Super Nintendo. But that's nothing less than what we should expect from a game released so near the end of the Super Nintendo lifespan. For context, this game was released between Super Mario RPG and Chrono Trigger. The music of Breath of Fire 2, in my opinion, is actually just a half step above that of Breath of Fire 1. some people will probably disagree with me on this, but I feel like the music in Breath of Fire 2 is more tailored to the individual scenes of Breath of Fire 2, again enhancing that narrative that's so strong in the game. It really makes the scenes come together in a way that it didn't help in Breath of Fire 1. I didn't actually end up getting to play Breath of Fire 2 until very recently, and when thinking about Breath of Fire on the Super Nintendo, it's still the original that comes to mind. Objectively speaking, Breath of Fire 2 is the better game in almost every single way. Better story, better gameplay, and better art and music. But was it more fun? Nostalgia makes this a pretty tricky question for me to answer. I feel like a lot of the improvements and added complexity of Breath of Fire 2 actually takes something away. Simplicity. And all of the fans of the Final Fantasy series are a testament to the fact that that's not something all gamers want or need. But it is something that Breath of Fire 1 had in spades. Something that it had when I fell in love with it all those years ago. Breath of Fire 2, like its predecessor, would later be ported to the Game Boy Advance with minor changes that helped reduce its difficulty and added a quick save feature. Again, minor changes were done to the artwork, and the translation was untouched, and the audio quality suffered in the transition, which, again, is pretty much par for the course. However, getting your hands on a copy of the Game Boy Advance version will save you some cash, because it can be yours for less than 15 bucks. But if you can shell out a bit more though, I recommend picking up the Super Nintendo version for around $40. Breath of Fire 2 was also met with positive feedback upon its release. This series was going places. Just not for another 3 years. But just think about it. If this is the improvement that Breath of Fire could make within just 1 year, imagine what Capcom could do with 3 years of reflection. Well, we'll get to that next time on the Game Collection.